Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, November 17th, 2025. We're here this evening for our in-person land use hearing. I call this meeting to order, and as is our tradition, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join if you're able. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kristen Stevens. I'm Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and with me are my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally and Commissioner John Kofalis. Behind us is Diane Cheney, and she is from the clerk's office. She'll be helping us with record keeping and note taking. To our right is the county attorney, one of our county attorneys, Christine Lucassen. And I will turn things over to Jenny Axmaker, who's our planning manager, and she will review. She'll do further introductions, and then she'll review a little bit about what's going to happen tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joining me at the dais, we have Senior Planner Michael Whitley, Principal Planner Matt Lafferty. From our Planning Admin Support Team, we have Ryan Oswendell. Out in the lobby, we have Christina Scrutchins, also from our Planning Admin Support. Across the way, we have Bruin Johnson and Tracy Shambo from our Engineering Department. We have County Planner Jared C., and then we have soon-to-be Planner Scott Benton joining us here in a few minutes, and we have Lisa Schneider from the Health Department. So with that, I respectfully request that all members of the audience silence their electronic devices. Please help yourself to a copy of tonight's agenda and hearing procedure instructions. You can grab a paper copy right by the door, or if you're joining us online, you can find those posted at the website on larimer.gov/BOCC/commissioners-meetings. For this evening's hearing, we're going to be using a sign-up sheet for public comments, and a time limit of 3 minutes will be implemented by the chair. If you'd like to speak tonight, please make sure to sign in with Christina out in the hallway. Please wait to speak until you're recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Anyone who's disruptive during the meeting will be asked to leave. Please make all comments to the Board of County Commissioners from the podium. We do have a portable microphone available if needed. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments and provide the spelling of your name if it's unique. Please speak directly into the microphone so that remote participants may hear. The microphone on the podium can be repositioned to best capture your testimony. Questions may be asked during your testimony but will not be answered until public comment is closed and the rebuttal has begun. Upon request, we do have assisted listening devices available for the hearing impaired. For those on Zoom, attendees will be muted until they're recognized by the chair. If an online attendee wishes to speak or request a consent item to be removed, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom control bar or *9 on your phone. We have had a request this evening by the applicant to table the first item on the discussion agenda. Staff would recommend that the Board of County Commissioners make a motion to table that to a future meeting date. Because we're not tabling it to a date certain, the county will be providing new public notice as sent out for this hearing for the future meeting date. And just as a note, Madam Chair, we do have several people signed up wishing to make public comment on this item, and staff would recommend delaying that until the future hearing date. I have a motion if you are interested in making a motion to table that item.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. So I'll just go through some additional information, including what's on the agenda today. All these items, except for the item that we'll be tabling, will be heard as a full hearing. And the item that will be tabled is the Aragon Holdings On-Light Septic Appeal, file number 25 GNRL 0577. We will not be taking public comment tonight on that item. Just remind folks this is about a septic appeal and not about the project itself. We have two other items that we will be hearing this evening. The first is the Wellington Growth Management Area Overlay Zone District, file number 25 Zone 3802. And this is a legislative rezoning to amend the Larimer County zoning map by adopting an overlay zone district boundary for the agreed upon planning area surrounding the town of Wellington in connection with a pending intergovernmental agreement between the town of Wellington and Larimer County. And then the second item we'll be hearing tonight is the USS Welch Solar Facility. It's a 1041 hearing, file number 25, zone 3793. The request here is a 1041 permit application for a nameplate 2.0 megawatt alternating current photovoltaic solar energy generation facility. So we will, Jenny, you want to put that motion up? So like I said, we will be tabling this item. We won't be taking public comment on that tonight. Jenny will be sending out notices to folks who are interested when this would come up again, but we do not have a date in mind yet, and that's why we'll resend notices. So Commissioner Kofalis, will you make this motion, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you, and welcome everyone. Good evening. I move that the Board of County Commissioners continue the Aragon Holdings on-light septic appeal, file number 25-GNRL 0577, to a future hearing date.
Thank you, Commissioner. There's a motion on the table. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that issue is tabled. Like I said, if you were here for that item, we're sorry that it had to be tabled at the applicant's request. But we will look forward to seeing you at another meeting. And with that, we will move on to our first agenda item, which is the Wellington GMA Overlay Zone District. And I am going to turn things over to Matt Lafferty, our principal planner, and he will talk about this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt Lafferty, Principal Planner with the Larimer County Community Development Department. This second item on your agenda tonight is a legislative zoning, which is a rezoning to add a overlay zone district to the area surrounding the town of Wellington to do cooperative planning in the area. I would say tonight, we would also like to suggest that Mr. Cody Bird from the town of Wellington, their planning director, is in attendance. So if you have any questions for him, he's available for that. And we really thank him for coming down and working with us and helping us out with this matter tonight. Just a little bit of background. February of 2025, last year, or previous this year, the Board of County Commissioners and the town of Wellington Board of Trustees got together and decided that they would form an intergovernmental agreement regarding land use matters between the town and the county. And since that time, the town staff and myself have been working on formulating what that intergovernmental agreement would look like. And I would say on Monday night, was it Monday night? Wednesday? Last Wednesday, thank you. Last Wednesday, the town of Wellington Board of Trustees signed the actual intergovernmental agreement. And that has been brought to us tonight. And we'll be preparing that to send to the commissioners for signature later this month. So we can finalize the intergovernmental agreement. The intergovernmental agreement, for the record, is just an agreement between the town and the county, which talks about how we will react together and work together on certain land use matters. It defines things like annexation policy. It defines when certain types of applications will be annexed or not annexed. It talks about who has the authority for decision-making on certain applications during the planning process, those types of things. But it's just a policy document. It's an agreement that stands between the two of us, and it does not include the residents of the area. That's what the overlay zone district for. The GMA overlay zone district is referenced inside that document and says that the county will adopt this overlay zone district, which gives us zoning authority to apply the town's comprehensive plan when we're doing land use matters such as rezonings, subdivisions, and special reviews. And so that's really what the two tools are. One's an intergovernmental agreement just between the two agencies. The growth management area overlay zone district pulls the residents into that envelope and allows us to work with them to achieve different land use patterns. So on the screen is my presentation. I've cut it down. It's fairly short. can get it to transfer forward. It's kind of stuck. We'll go through it this way. So as I was just talking, the town of Wellington and the county are in agreement on an intergovernmental agreement right now, and that's being signed and should be finished by the beginning of December. Hopefully, following that, we will record the GMA overlay zone district if it's approved tonight. And then that will fully execute the intergovernmental agreement. The town of Wellington has a comprehensive plan. That's what's illustrated on the screen here. It was adopted in 2020 by the town. They spent several years going through a process to adopt various land uses across their area, looking at the boundaries and figuring out what types of infrastructure needs would be available for the area and what they could actually service. And this is the plan that they came up with. The county, like the town, has an intergovernmental agreement, or has a comprehensive plan. And we too identified that the area around Wellington was going to urbanize and that we would recognize that sometime in the future. Our comprehensive plan was adopted slightly before their plan was, their current plan was adopted. The area just south of the Wellington area, we identified in our comprehensive plan as a potential cooperative planning area to create a growth separator between the town of Timnath, Wellington, and Fort Collins, kind of a separator plan, as well as we have identified things like high agricultural values and conservation values in that area that we want to understand for the future. And this is important because in the next slide, you can see the town of Wellington's boundary in black on this slide, and that shows a portion of the town's boundary was going down into that cooperative planning area. And the town and the county have discussed this for a short time and said that for right now, not necessarily for the long-term future, but for the current time frame, they would not, that the county would not expand the GMA that we're agreeing on with them into that boundary until we understand that area a little bit better and work with our other municipalities. And the towns have agreed to that. So the red line on the map is the boundary that we're talking about tonight. The county wants to adopt the GMA overlay zone, which implements section 2.7 of our code, which gives us the authority to use their comprehensive plan for planning matters in the future. That is what the red line represents. The black line is that area that we've left out of it after discussions for a variety of reasons. Those areas were left out primarily because they were either agricultural areas, which we already accommodate agricultural uses, or because it was in that cooperative planning area. And so with that, we have had in the last year a presentation. We went up into town Wellington and we had an open house meeting with the town residents, the people that lived around the town, basically the unincorporated area. We invited them in and had a conversation with them about what the GMA overlay zone district entails. Most of the concerns from that meeting were that there's concerns about being annexed into the town, or upon annexation, what does that mean to a property owner? What if they don't agree to the land use practices that are going on in the town? And just general concerns about not wanting to be annexed and to be governed by different municipalities. And so we discussed those matters, and there's still some people that have concerns about that. I know that most of the residents that came out and spoke were just, we don't want to be part of this right now, and we're concerned that we were not part of the planning process for the comprehensive plan. They actually believe that we're adopting the comprehensive plan tonight and that this is a new plan. This is an old plan that was adopted several years ago by the town, and they felt they didn't get a say in that, and so they're concerned about that. There are others that are being included into the boundary that believe that they would just rather not be in the boundary. And you'll hear from some of them, and regardless, we're making a recommendation that this boundary be adopted. And with that, I'll close my presentation by saying that there are benefits to being in an overlay zone district. It gives us an idea of how to guide property owners to the best practices that might fit their property. So some people will see benefits from different zone districts if they ever choose to rezone or subdivide their properties. It sets out a clear annexation policy and it defines who's going to manage and control maintenance of infrastructure. It ensures that infrastructure is available for those long-term uses. And, it defines who's going to be making decisions on land use matters in that area, whether it's inside the town or outside of the town in the county. And with that, I would make a recommendation in two parts. One, that you adopt the GMA overlay zone district as presented, and that it become effective upon the recordation of the overlay or the intergovernmental agreement, as it needs to still be signed by the Board of County Commissioners. And then secondly, that you certify this amendment to the zoning map for Larimer County. And with that, I'd answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt? Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Cody, and thanks to staff. It's been a long process, a lot of conversations. We've had a lot of conversations with our joint meetings with the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, and we also had some great joint meetings discussing this with the trustees in the town of Wellington and their staff. And I appreciate the area separators and the discussion, and I see a lot of things in here were part of our discussions. So I'm grateful for the partnerships and the relationship building and kind of looking and working on this together. So my question is, since we had some robust discussions, how was I didn't get to watch the Wellington town meeting, and I know you said it was just adopted. Any comments or any overview of how this was, or maybe this will be what Mr. Bird will bring up, but how is the public feeling about this for the town of Wellington? They've grown so fast, and this is a lot more formal process than we've had with them before. So how are they feeling? Are they excited, confident? What is this? What is the mood or the tone or how the public feeling about this as well?
Thank you, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, and I'll let Cody speak to it if he wants to. But that evening at the meeting, it started a little bit rough, and a lot of those meetings are because whenever anybody says we're going to cause rezoning on you, of course your hackles go up, and you're like, well, what's the government doing to me now, and this and that. And so a lot of concern at that meeting. It started out, people were pretty riled up and didn't want this and didn't want that. And a lot of people voiced their concerns, and we shared a lot of thoughts during that meeting. And at the terminus of the meeting, I felt personally that the meeting took a fairly good turn, and a lot of the people that attended, not all, a lot of the people attended felt a little more comfortable with what was going on. And then there's just that group of individuals that are going to be, we don't want to be part of this, and that's understandable. They moved to the county years ago, and they want to remain in the county, and they just felt that they didn't want to participate in it, and that it was the government was extending their reach, and that's kind of what they felt. But out of, I would say there was probably 75 attendees at the Planning Commission meeting. There might have been 10 people that showed up, and I think tonight there might be 2 or 3. So I think that it went over okay.
Thank you. And I was reading through the document, but I was trying to, also just, you were there, and I did hear from some folks, and I did watch a portion of it, but I just haven't had time to really kind of go back and listen. But, and I don't know if Mr. Bird wants to add, and I wanted to say I appreciate the time we've had to be able to take this and have those initial conversations and listen to each other and find ways in common areas. And I see that in this document. So thank you. And Mr. Bird, what would you like to add?
Go ahead.
Thank you. If you could just introduce yourself. And then...
Thank you, Commissioners. Cody Bird, I'm the Planning Director for the town of Wellington. I appreciate your audience here tonight and for considering this item on behalf of the town of Wellington. I also briefly really appreciate Mr. Lafferty's participation in this effort, and his explanations have been very thorough. I actually heard Commissioner Shattuck McNally, your question maybe being a little more geared towards the more recent Board of Trustees meeting last week. So I can definitely speak to that. Our Board of Trustees is very excited about this document. They said as much at our meeting last Wednesday. They recognize its importance for the continued growth of the community, but also recognizing the property rights of the surrounding county residents, not wanting to grow too fast, that our community has done infrastructure planning and our comprehensive plan to ensure that our growth expectations are aligned with the capacity to serve. And although there were no public comments on that item last week, our board has been very excited about this process as a whole to show how Wellington is growing up in the region. There were a couple questions from our trustees about the cooperative planning area, and we acknowledge that that's another conversation, not a part of this particular one, at least on the details, but we are excited for that conversation to continue as well. So our board did pass a resolution authorizing execution of the IGA, knowing that your process still comes next, but our board was in full support and that was approved unanimously. I'm happy to answer any other questions that the commissioners may have this evening.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you. And just make one other comment, Madam Chair. I think both of you mentioned, you started off, there's lots of people coming, and then as they learned and listened, the numbers shrank, and maybe people felt more comfortable, and I think that was a good point to be made. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavallis, is there any questions that you have of Cody while he's up here? Seems easier to ask him while he's up here than keep making him.
Yeah, thank you. I may have some questions, but it might be better time to see if there's any public testimony. I'm also referring to the notes, the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting, and I'm hoping at some point we can address some of the specific concerns that folks raised there and address, really try to address, make sure that people understand what we're doing tonight, what we're considering to do tonight. Yes.
Great. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, we'll move into public comment, and then if we don't hear from some of the folks, we'll try to introduce some of those comments that, like you said, were heard at Planning Commission, just so we can get those out in the open. Is there anyone here that wanted to give public comment on this item? Okay, wonderful.
So we have utilized a sign-up sheet for tonight.
Oh.
So if
Dear.
it's okay, Madam Chair, can we start with the person who has signed up to make comment? It may be the same person.
Yes, let's do that.
Do you wanna?
Our first person is June Medford.
And lo and behold, it is the same person. So wonderful. Welcome, June, and we'll have you introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. First of all, I have been privileged to live in Larimer County for 30 years. This is the first time I've been here, and I am coming out of here first time to speak to you, our commissioners, to beg you, please do not approve this as written. You're hearing two different sides. You're hearing Matt say, oh, yeah, there was an objection, and once they approved, they kind of calmed down. There was 150 there. We objected strongly. We live in rural Larimer County, and we love living there. If you can, commissioners, or if perhaps somebody can pass these maps that I printed out for you. I only have a black and white printer. Ma'am, may you? I'm so sorry. Again, I don't know. These are maps of the growth zone. We live in Cottonwood Shores, and I need to tell you the only reason why I am the only neighbor here tonight is our annual Cottonwood Shores meeting. This is a homeowners association of about 28 people, and by the way, they also have a potluck and friends, and I would rather be there. But this really bothers me, and I'm asking you, please do not approve. Please exclude it, and here is why. First, we have an existing community. John, this community has existed for over 25 years. And we've existed. We have a meeting, and again, it's tonight with potlucks and friends, and we work together to bring the community together, putting half of our community in the Wellington Growth Management Zone and the other half not is a major problem. This is actually split by Lake 6, the North Buda Reservoir 6. Our community is not here because of the annual meeting. Matt and the Larimer County, or the Wellington guy may say, oh, we've been talking about this for years. No one notified anyone in our community about this until the summer of 2025. They went against the principle of the law, and I would ask the county attorney to please consider modifying the law. It says, as far as I know, you notify things by things on bulletin boards and in newspapers. I have not seen a paper newspaper in over 2 decades. This is not the way we get information. So please bear in mind, if you didn't hear objection, it's because we didn't know about it until the summer. The third thing is the Wellington Growth Manager is going to potentially bring commercial development right next to the area where our community has set aside conservation easements. I've seen deer, I've seen coyotes, I've seen all kinds of rural things out on our land. And now you want to have commercial development? Please, commissioners, please do not do that. I'm begging you. And lastly, I want to finish up with all in our community are a little bit concerned that the city of Wellington is growing quite differently than other areas like Timnath or Windsor. Okay, they've grown and they've seemed to plan. Well, if you take it Wellington, it's like how many houses can we put on top of other houses? And instead, what they're trying to do is usurp land where it's rural. We live there because our neighbors have horses and cows. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thank you.
Is that it? I've never done
Oh,
this before.
yep, that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, your
Excuse
time
me.
is up.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. No, you
Is that-
did fine. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right, Ryan, is there anyone else who signed up?
We don't have anyone else signed up, no?
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak? All right, is there anyone online who wanted to speak?
If there are any members of the public online who would like to speak on this case, please use the raise your hand function now. We have no hands raised.
Thank you. All right. So Matt, maybe you can respond to some of what you just heard. Cody, we might bring you up to do so as well. And then maybe we can articulate, as Commissioner Cavalos was saying, some of the things that we've heard via Planning Commission and other sources. So.
Very good. A couple of things. With regards to notice, we mailed out over 200 and some postcards to the property owners that fall within the boundary of the area that we are talking about. So we did a postcard mailing. We've noticed it in all the other formats too, but we did an actual notice twice to the property owners that live in that area. So we noticed the meeting in Wellington via postcard. That's why we had such a good attendance. And those people came to the meeting, voiced their concern. Yes, there was people that voiced their concern and objection. I believe a lot of people left there with a different opinion than when they came. That's my personal opinion of what I observed that evening at the meeting. In addition to that, we did do the notice in the paper, and we did notice in the other locations that we're supposed to notice in accordance with our codes and with state law. With regards to what was said at those meetings, and at the Planning Commission meeting in just a couple of weeks ago, last month, most of the concerns that came from the people that are there, we had a couple of people said, we don't want to be part of it. That's what they don't want. They do not want to be included in it. They feel that they're going to get annexed without any opinion that they're going to be forcibly annexed within into the town. They don't agree necessarily with what the land use objectives of the town are and how they might impact their properties in the future. But in general, several of them just felt that they just did not want to be part of the town's limits at some point in the future or part of this plan because of the uncertainty, what that means for them in the future. As you just heard from the one resident, they live in a subdivision that was built. I actually did that project back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, worked on that project. And that project was approved in the county. It still exists in the county. It's on the periphery of their GMA. Will it be annexed? Maybe someday. I don't know when. There's no guarantee that it'll be annexed. But the only time that annexation occurs, according to state law, is without the approval of the residents that live there, is if they're totally embraced by the town, meaning the town has to surround them with real property on all sides of their property. So all the property around them would have to annex, and that does not include roads. And if that happened, the town then could, by state law, after consuming them for 3 years, forcibly annex that area. The town has indicated that they have no desire to do that type of annexation. That doesn't mean that their elected officials don't change and that opinion doesn't change, but the GMA ends with this property, so to go around them, they would have to annex outside of the growth management area that we're agreeing upon, which they can do. But that might create some friction between the town and the county if they were to do that. And I don't think they have any desire to do that, because then you can ask Mr. Byrd. They've designed their comprehensive plan around the idea of what infrastructure is available to the area and what they can actually serve with water and sewer. And so they don't look beyond their boundary at this point. They think that this boundary is what they can serve. And so they don't plan on expanding beyond that at this time. So if there are specific questions about the Planning Commission meeting or other meetings, I'll answer those. Otherwise, I think that covers the gist of what happened.
Any further questions for Matt or Cody on that? Go ahead, Commissioner Shattuck Valley.
Thanks, Matt. It's appreciate hearing that you worked on this project 20 years ago for that neighborhood, but can you expand to me on, it's an existing community. It has a home association that's having a meeting tonight. It sounds like a tight community. Also, it does look like it's dividing that community. With some is going to be in the GMA and some's not. And I see there's lots of conservation easements on that. And I see wondering about that corner, because it sounds like that might, when I look at the town, I'm looking at this map, and I look at all the development there, and I know that's probably looking close to, it makes idea to maybe looking at, sounds like the resident also talked about industrial or commercial going there. I could see the concern with that. And then I'm wondering about the best practice or how that works with maybe taking an existing association and having it, part of it be in and partially not being in. So I'm wondering about that, because that is kind of concerning to kind of divide a community, because then they have different sets of rules. We're putting a different potential set of rules on in a group, and so I'm wondering how that impacts that community. I mean, I feel like they are a community because they have a formal structure where they meet and have a gathering and things.
Well, there's two things to that. I'm going to pull up the map one more time, sorry. We're talking about the area, thank you, that is right along the north side of this reservoir here. There's a handful of lots. This actually is not one development, it's two. There's a development on the east side of the reservoir called Vista Cottonwood Shores 1, and the Vista Cottonwood Shores 2 is on the other side. They were approved at separate times under separate things. They consider themselves one community. The town of Wellington chose in their plan here that you can see on the screen, they chose to draw the boundary along that western or that eastern boundary of the lake, because they didn't see any need to go beyond that boundary of the lake and go to the other side to pick things up. And so that's where the town drew the boundary. We agreed to that boundary because that's what they represented. Is there a reason for it to be in or out? Probably not. Ultimately, the town would probably annex it. That's a conservation development is what was approved there. And so the residual land that's in that development, meaning the land that was left native and not part of the housing units, not in the lots, is protected in covenant perpetually, so that cannot future develop it. So even if the town annexed the property tomorrow, let's just say that was the case, all that's going to happen is they're going to go into the town limits and they'll have to deal with whatever those consequences mean from standpoints of policing and things like that, and maybe various taxes and whatnot. But it doesn't change the fact that their homes are still on their lots and that their residual land is not going to change and their roads aren't going to become different. It just means that they've been annexed into the town. To me, it could be in or out. It doesn't benefit the county one way or another. The only other person that would offer any opinion on that would be Mr. Byrd this evening, and maybe he has an opinion on that.
Commissioner, would you like to hear from Mr. Byrd?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
I'm sorry, we don't take any more public comment from the audience. That's okay. No, it's fine. Hi, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you, Commissioners. Again, Cody Byrd, Planning Director for the Town of Wellington. Really appreciate the comments from the resident of Cottonwood Estates there, Cottonwood Shores. Just to give a little bit of background, the town adopted a comprehensive plan in 2021. And to explain the consideration at that time, the town of Wellington doesn't have any desire to annex or change the neighborhoods there at Cottonwood Shores. We recognize the existence of those homes in a beautiful community. There's no desire to change any of that. But one of the things that the town did look at as part of our comprehensive plan is our responsibility to, for areas where we may be providing municipal services, what are the range of services that may be needed in that area? And in particular, we looked at sanitary sewer service. As Mr. Lafferty alluded to, this is a community that was established 20, 25 years ago. In my experience, 20 years is where you start to think about what's my septic system going to do? If it's failing, what services might I need at that point? And so in looking at our comprehensive plan and our infrastructure boundaries, we evaluated, do any of these neighborhoods that are immediately adjacent to us, are they likely to need any of our services in the future, and can we provide them? So from a municipal utility service standpoint, that's what we looked at when we considered Cottonwood Shores, was if there's sewer service needed or requested, could we accommodate that? And we can. So we have designed our sanitary sewer master plan in a way that could accommodate that need if requested in the future. It is the policy of the town of Wellington to only consider annexation upon the property owner's request. So we would need to see a majority vote of the ownership of that subdivision or development in order to consider that request for annexation. The fact that there are two sides of that reservoir with development on either side, and I respect the comments about kind of the community feel of that neighborhood and those developments. West of the reservoir, it gets a little more challenging for us to serve from an infrastructure standpoint, as well as to meet the eligibility requirements for municipal annexation. And that's where we drew the boundary, kind of following the property lines, but picking up those areas that could be served for municipal sewer. So that's what we were considering when we looked at the comprehensive plan. As far as the proposed GMA overlay zone goes, I think Mr. Lafferty answered those questions fairly well. And we're not looking to change anything from a land use standpoint in that area. To some of the public comment, we have identified the area along Highway 1 and County Road 58, and then County Road 9 or Giddings Road going south. That is an area that the town anticipates a higher level of intensity development because of the intersection of those major roadways there. So we have made our land use plans, our infrastructure plans accordingly to be able to serve that higher capacity need someday. I hope that answered some of the questions at a high level, and if there are more detailed questions, I'm happy to answer those as well.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Cavales.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. I'm just wondering, looking at the letter that Ms. Medford provided, one of the bullet points had to do with concerns about commercial development. And when you just brought up the point about more intensive development at that intersection, County Road 58 and Highway 1, is that what she's expressing concern about? Can you speak to that, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I want to be really careful not to put words in the mouths of the resident that was speaking, but to the geographic area at the south end of Wellington's comprehensive plan around the intersection of Highway 1 and County Road 58, we do identify that area as potential commercial development and a higher level of intensity of development, meaning we expect that there could be more density of homes around that intersection. Proximity to between Wellington and Fort Collins, a desirable area, proximity to availability of services. All of those factors were looked at and considered as part of Wellington's comprehensive plan proposal, and this was an area that could support that intense level of development for commercial activities also.
And that comprehensive plan was approved by the Wellington Town Trustees back in 2020?
2021. Yeah.
And I'm remembering that there was a community engagement process. Can you speak to that? People being involved in helping to shape that comprehensive plan?
Absolutely. I don't want to go back too far, but we started our comprehensive plan effort before COVID, and we continued on through COVID. So we did start with a robust in-person public engagement plan, and we had to pivot to more of a virtual. When we did our comprehensive plan engagement process, we collected over 2,000 unique individuals that commented on our online map with pins and drops and comments, as well as the plan itself. So we did have a very extensive public engagement process there. And after multiple public hearings, the Planning Commission did recommend adoption of the comprehensive plan that you see today, and our board has supported that through their approvals and decision making. So I'm not sure that that got to the heart of the matter, but certainly we did follow a public engagement process and state statutes regarding creation of comprehensive plans.
May I ask a little bit of a dialogue? Yeah, thanks, Cody. You're not done yet. I've just, well, is it correct then in terms of the matter of annexation, follow state statutes? I mean, a parcel cannot be annexed into the town of Wellington unless there's a willing landowner or unless it's contiguous. Can you speak to that a little bit more, please?
Certainly. So it's for eligibility for annexation, there's a certain criteria that statutory communities have to satisfy. One of those criteria is that 1/6 of the boundary has to be contiguous with the municipal limits. So that's the first kind of qualifying test. Another qualifier is that there has to be a community of interest. So utility infrastructure extension is the most common. Usually municipalities see if there's a request to develop a property, that is when the landowner or a potential purchaser approaches the municipality and asks that question: would you consider annexation into our municipality in order to receive services like water, sewer? Fire protection is another important one there to get the fire flow requirements for your infrastructure. Most of the rural water providers can't meet that requirement for fire flows, so municipalities are usually the ones who are asked to provide that. So those are the community of interest is usually related to a development request, and it's the policy of the town of Wellington to only consider those requests when the landowner is seeking it. We don't go out unilaterally. We're not allowed to make a unilateral annexation, and our town staff doesn't approach landowners saying, we really think you should do this. Our typical approach is to hear those requests from the landowner themselves.
Maybe one more. Thank you, Cody. It's helpful. Going back to some of the things that were identified at the Planning Commission hearing, I think we're addressing, and some of it comes out of the letter that we received. What about agricultural land? As long as I've been up in your neck of the woods, there's always been an interesting dynamic between farmers and ranchers up there and the town of Wellington and the growth. How can we continue to protect ag land, because there are some productive ag lands up there, and still allow for the sustainable growth of the community?
Yeah, excellent question. I appreciate you bringing it up. Since it's still on the presentation slide here, I'll reference the comprehensive plan map. When Wellington adopted our comprehensive plan, that theme of protecting our agricultural heritage and our culture was a prevalent theme for the community of Wellington. And what you see on the comprehensive plan map there, we've recognized that there are areas near and adjacent to Wellington that may want municipal services someday. But for our 20 to 30 year planning horizon that our comprehensive plan evaluates, we don't anticipate a lot of the outlying communities at the limits of that boundary requesting those services. So we did identify them as agricultural. That's something that the town wants to protect. Protecting community separators is another important aspect that the town of Wellington desires to pursue, and identifying those agricultural properties would help towards that preservation of open space, preservation of agricultural land and other community values. So we did contemplate that in this comprehensive plan effort, and at a more adjacent to the existing municipal limits, it continues to be important for our community to support the agricultural uses as well. So much so that even on a recent annexation proposal, We know that's a longer range development proposal for a 300-acre site. We've identified ways to maintain those agricultural practices on that property until a development phase says, okay, we're ready to put the infrastructure in the ground. So we're still allowing those productive farms to continue to cultivate and operate the way they have for many, many years until such time as there's a change requested by the landowner.
Thank you. And of course, I think Matt alluded to this, that there will need to be future conversations about the community separator concept on the to ensure that as Wellington considers growth, that it doesn't just morph into Fort Collins or Timnath, and that there are some buffers and spaces there. Isn't that correct, Cody?
Very correct. And you see that in our comprehensive plan map at the south end of our GMA. It does get narrower and narrower to only encompass some critical intersections for major roadways where that additional or that higher level of development might be requested and that we can serve. But we've also identified the very south end there, Larimer County Canal. While not maybe a natural feature since it is man-made, it's a logical terminus to our southern boundary. And so we've identified the areas south of that as agricultural, and we would support that community separator there, and as well as the ongoing conversations with Fort Collins and Timnath to maintain separation between communities.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Thank you, sir.
All right. I don't think I have anything else. Thank you. We'll let you sit down now for a while.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. So any questions for Matt, staff? We don't ask questions. We just have public comment, and then that's the only proper opportunity for people to speak. Mm-hmm. But staff can, certainly talk to you afterwards. After the meeting, if there's somebody in staff that might be able to talk to you, or you can reach out to staff after the meeting and talk to someone.
Is it appropriate to talk to one of the commissioners?
Not right now, but after the meeting. Yeah. No, you're fine. It's okay to ask those questions. Sometimes these meetings are confusing to folks, and we don't ask so we have the public comment, and then there's no opportunities to ask questions. There's opportunities, beforehand and certainly afterwards, but not during the meeting. So thank you. All right, commissioners, anything further before we talk about this and deliberate? Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Maybe I feel bad, Cody. I might have you come back up, but Matt and Cody, just a lot of the concerns about always growth, and a lot of the I have had family live in Wellington, and I've been up there a lot, and friends up there, and traveled a lot for this as a commissioner, and there's concerns about when you start laying these plans, everyone thinks this growth is going to happen overnight. So a couple of questions. Talking about the view sheds, and I don't know the town of Wellington's building codes or what that looks like, but I'm assuming there's robust community conversations about the comprehensive plan. And then also, can you just speak to either one of you about, just for the public's interest, I understand, I know this answer, but just to talk in general about when we have this GMA or IGA, it's for way far down forward thinking, so that planning can happen and happen thoughtfully and intentionally, and have public input and have these conversations and work together, so that it sets a clear guidance of how we talk and work together. Can you just kind of maybe address those two things? I don't know whether you want to chime in, Matt, or who wants to address that, but I think I want to just kind of get that out and for public record, just some of those points.
I think we both can address that. Intergovernmental agreements and the GMAs as they're formed, the intergovernmental agreement that's being established right now that will be supported by this overlay zone district, the overlay, it says that we will reevaluate this in 10 years. And so the IGA is good for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, if all cooperation is going well and we don't see any really big issues with anything, then it automatically extends itself for 5-year periods, and then we check in every 5 years after that. Comprehensive plans, speaking for the county's comprehensive plan as well as many of the municipal comprehensive plans in the area, are long-term outlooks. They look out 20 years, they look out, 20, 25 years. They get updated more frequently than that, but they look out that far because we got to be able to think ahead, what's going to happen in the future in places like Wellington and whatnot in order to succeed as communities need to grow at some rate. As we've seen in Berthoud and other places, some of these places just grow rampantly real quick. They might have just stumbled along for years and then they hit the prime spot. And so there's no guarantee to how fast something's going to come online. But these comprehensive plans are anticipated to look out at least 20 years of growth. And during that process, Wellington has its own codes. We have our codes, and what we try to do in these cooperative planning areas, these GMA overlay zone districts, is to not align just land uses, but to look at development standards as much as we can and make sure that we're designing things that are appropriate to the context of that community. So we'll consider some of their stuff as well on that.
Thank you for that. And I do think that's an important distinction to share. And I know those things because I think that's one of the first ways I've met you was before I became a commissioner. I attended some comprehensive planning meetings for the county. And I think that's a lot of folks haven't shown up for those in the past. And hopefully people will understand that's really important part to be involved as a public, to have part of that vision of what's really forward thinking. But thank you for that. I don't know if Mr. Byrd wanted to add anything. I'm just wondering about some of these concerns. But that's for the town, to talk about with their development standards. But I'm assuming they have the same values as we do about protecting view sheds and natural areas and some of these wildlife corridors. And I just wanted to kind of have that out for the public record.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And Mr. Lafferty said it very well for coordination. The one piece that I would maybe add to that is that I desire to create some certainty where a property might be near a community but not inside the community. If that landowner wanted to do something, sometimes they get stuck in that. I'd really like to do this, but I don't have the right services and the county doesn't provide services. So they're kind of stuck in that no man's land with no reasonable expectations of what they could expect. And the neighbors too, what could you expect when any given day they might or might not have that infrastructure. So the GMA overlay zone does provide a layer of certainty for what to expect down the road. So I wanted to throw that in there. And Commissioner Shattuck McNally referencing view sheds and preservation of open space. While Wellington's provisions may not be as robust as other communities on that front, we don't have the staffing resources for an open space division, but the values are still there. Preservation of that open space, preservation of culturally sensitive or agriculturally sensitive areas is still very top of mind for us, and it's reflected in our values in our comprehensive plan. To the extent that the town of Wellington isn't interested in going out and pursuing individual properties for development, we consider every development proposal that comes our way on the merits of that particular case. So if a piece of land or property comes to the town of Wellington with a request to develop, we'll go through the town's processes, starting with annexation. Is it even eligible? Can we serve it? Is it appropriate for the community to serve it? And then what type of development pattern is reasonable for that piece of property? And I've had a really great working relationship with Mr. Lafferty, Ms. Ellis, Ms. Everett, all of your planning staff and the commissioners as well, to be able to have conversations around an appropriate path for any property development.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd and Mr. Lafferty. I really appreciate your answers, and thank you for letting me pose that question just to kind of share, with folks that, this is for positive and building partnerships and collaboration and making sure the public is also heard. I think that's also embedded in there. So I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think okay, go ahead.
Just maybe one additional comment at the moment in response to what you folks said, and that is, if looking at the review criteria for the creating the overlay district and the rezoning, one of the criterion has to do with natural environment. And as I'm understanding things, that one of the benefits of doing this would be that to protect the natural environment, any future developments would have to abide by environmental standards that are expressed in the comprehensive plan. And then, of course, land use code is what actually enforces things. Can you speak to that, Cody? Am I getting that right?
I think you're definitely on the right path, and I wouldn't want to detract from what you said, but just to add to it,
Please.
Our comprehensive plan is a guide for development in areas that the town is likely to grow in that 20 to 30 year horizon. Again, the map is still on the presentation screen. A lot of the areas that you see are identified for commercial or industrial uses. Those areas are kind of the purplish color or the red color. Those are areas that are along an interstate highway, along a railroad corridor, high traffic county roadways that might get annexed into the town someday in the future. That's where most of the intensive land uses are identified. As you get further away from the town, we kind of step that down to a higher intensity residential development standard, then a lower density residential standard, then an agricultural standard. So as communities grow, you look at those land uses that are forecast for infrastructure availability and deployment, but we measure each application on its own merits. I do think that that's part of the reason why we do comprehensive planning, is to understand those expectations as we move forward. We identify sensitive areas like floodplains in this crosshatched area. We identify conservation easements that are protected in areas that may want to be protected in the future. So we have the opportunity to go back to our board of trustees and our future boards and future planners and say, this was the plan. This was an area that was, sensitive to these needs, and we want to make sure that we've reflected that so that we have a leg to stand on when a developer comes along and says, we really just want to build more houses. We can say, that's an area that wasn't suitable for houses, and we're going to stick to that.
Commissioner Kafalis, just to build on that discussion, adopting the GMA overlay zone district or having the intergovernmental agreement in place, as you see by the review criteria there, it talks about the natural environment. We recognize through their comprehensive plan and through our comprehensive plan that the natural environment is an important part of the community and that our codes need to make sure that we protect those natural resources and make sure that they're respected as we do development. Because we're not looking at development specific, that criteria has to be evaluated at the time development comes in. And so if a development is to happen inside the county, it's not annexed into the town. We're going to fully implement our environmental regulations as they're outlined in our code and make sure that they're adhered to throughout the process. And so that's why there's not a real big response to the natural environment inside that review criteria. It's to acknowledge that it exists. Natural environment is important to us, as is the agricultural environment. And we will make sure that we use our buffering regulations and our natural environment regulations, such as wetlands analysis and floodplain analysis and those types of things, to protect those resources.
And just with the intergovernmental agreement, that encourages cooperation, because if there's a specific development proposal within the growth management area, and it's still in the county, we would look at our standards and guidelines, but we would be consulting with you, Cody, and your town trustees and your planning folks.
That's right. And thank you, Commissioner Kafalis. I think it's also important to note that in that collaboration, if there's a request made in Larimer County, that the first step is to refer it, if it's within the GMA overlays, to refer it to the town for annexation consideration. And if we're not able to annex it or unwilling to because it's too expensive and the town's not paying for that infrastructure, it would go back to the county and you would be still using your zoning authority to enact a development review on that and follow all of those standards. So that collaboration goes both ways to make sure that what's being requested on the property is suitable, can be served by adequate infrastructure, and is not damaging sensitive areas.
Thank you.
Great. Anything further? All right. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
Are we ready for deliberation? Are there any more questions you want to ask? Are we
Ready for deliberation?
ready for? All right. Commissioner Shannon McNally, how do you get us started with that?
First, I want to just again reiterate just the conversations between staff. I know Director Ellis and Matt and a bunch of folks have been involved for a long time having these conversations. As we recognized, we have IJs with a lot of communities, but this is really important for this community. There's a lot of very special areas in Wellington. It's a very unique and special town, and with the agricultural history and heritage, and there's some wildlife areas there, and it's a very special community, and I really appreciate the partnership and collaboration and discussions that we've had, and just the spirit of looking what we can do together and looking at respecting and understanding what the communities really wanted to hear and see. I know we've had some robust conversations. There's been a lot of meetings, a lot of feedback, and I really want to thank everyone for bringing that feedback and to be being here tonight. And I appreciate being here tonight and sharing the concerns. And hopefully, with our discussion, we've maybe helped address some of those concerns. And that's the reason I brought up about the IGA. It's not carved in granite. It's going to be really reevaluated and looked at, and there'll be plenty of time to. Not wouldn't say plenty of time. There's still opportunities to get feedback and talk about it because communities grow and change, and times and growth happens and stalls, and it just depends on how this all goes with economies and all kinds of things that are happening in our federal and state levels right now. So I wanted to appreciate the residents and the public comment tonight and coming today and sharing a lot of the concerns and questions
That's the concern for our entire community.
and I wanted to just say I did I know it can look as concern for having some of those things divided community, but it sounds like it's really based on being able to access to sewer and water and where that's at. It's not really trying to divide that. And so I wanted to just again appreciate the opportunity to chat tonight and discuss this. And I've been paying attention to some of the planning commission meetings, and when we had a very interesting discussion with our planning commission and joint meeting with the board of county commissioners. So I do feel when you look at the criteria and you look at all the like the natural environment that was brought up and the additional criteria of to establish an enlarged GMA district and all the Article 6 and other review criteria, I do feel that this meets those criteria, and I think it has been addressed, and I have my answers about why that area was kind of included, and so I feel that going forward I can support this overlay proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kapalis.
Yeah, thanks. So, I concur that the review criteria that are before us that have to do with rezoning and the overlay the overlay zoning district that we're considering. I mean, I believe all of those criteria have been met, and then there's some other additional criteria. I do want to send a message to the Wellington folks that there still seems to be some surprise or confusion about what we're doing, and that this isn't about specific development proposals. It's to try to provide a framework. But for whatever reasons, I'm not sure why, it appears that folks from the Cottonwood Shores neighborhoods, they at least one representative is speaking that they're not in agreement. So my hope is that maybe to consider opportunities for more discussion and dialogue so people can better understand what is happening this evening and how people can engage and inform future updates to intergovernmental agreements, or certainly when Wellington is looking at perhaps updating its comprehensive plan. I think our comprehensive plan, the county master plan, was updated. It was a 2-year process at least, and involved all the different parts of our Larimer County, and that was adopted in July of 2019. So I think there are opportunities for folks to engage, and I'm hoping, Cody, you can bring back to your people um, some of what happened tonight and some of the concerns that haven't been fully resolved, although we've done our best, I think, to resolve them. That maybe there can be more community conversations about that. So I'll support the the application before us regarding um, the overlay zone district, changing the zoning, and also certifying the map. There, I think there are two motions here.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll also be supporting the GMA overlay zone district. I think this has been a long time coming with Larimer County and Wellington. We have these kind of agreements and these overlays in other communities. It's very clear where the growth management areas are. And it wasn't. And these kind of plans provide predictability for development and for the communities. I think it's really great to set these. Like I said, we have these with other communities, and so just providing that certainty, I think, is really important. I'm glad we had the conversation that we did around annexation, because I don't, I think that there's some fear around annexation, and I don't think it's always inevitable or quick, and that it's not done with some thought. And it is not as though, it would change the community. You know, I liked how Cody was explaining the fact that as you pull away from that city center, the density is very it's very low density, and it's very similar to what's already happening in those areas. So it's not a radical departure from what's happening, but there is the ability to connect people to sanitary sewer systems and other utilities that the city provides, which could be beneficial to those areas. So I know that not everybody's happy in these kind of scenarios, but I do think it's good to have a plan and to move forward with this plan, and so I will be in support. It certainly meets the criteria we've set out today, and I think these conversations can continue. It sounds like Vistas at Cottonwood Shores is a wonderful place to live. I mean, I think that working with Wellington and the county, that it will continue to be, and so I know there's some unhappiness right now, but I do feel this is important for both Larimer County and Wellington to come to this space where we agree on these boundaries, and we are moving forward with a plan for both Larimer County and the Wellington community. So with that, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, I will ask you to make the suggested motions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Planning Commission
I put that in, I'm sorry, it should say
Board of
that the
County
Board of
Oh,
County
Commissioners.
yeah,
Commissioners.
sorry, I was like, that's why I was stopping, like, wait a minute. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the legislative zoning amendment to the Larimer County zoning district map and the Larimer County zoning district's front range area map, file number 25-CONE 3802, to adopt the Wellington Growth Management Area Overlay Zone District as proposed by the Community Development Department, subject to the following condition. A, the zoning shall not be finalized until the intergovernmental agreement between Larimer County and the town of Wellington is signed by both entities and recorded. And I move that the Board of County Commissioners certify the Larimer County zoning map and the Larimer County zoning district map front range area as proposed.
Thank you, Commissioner. There's a motion on the table. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes 3-0. So we will move on to our final item on our agenda, which is the USS Welch Solar Facility 1041. And we will go through a full hearing on this. So how that works is we'll hear the staff presentation on this, then we will hear from the applicant. We usually give the applicant 10 minutes to speak. Then we would open for public comment. we would take public comment both in person and online. And then after that, if there's any public comment that's not in support, we would give the applicant time to rebut what they've heard for 5 minutes, and then move it back to the commissioners for any final questions and deliberations, similar to what we've seen today. But the rebuttal would come from the applicants. And so with that, who is presenting?
It will be our environmental planner, Scott Benton.
Okay, that Scott Benton was on my list, but there were several others, so I didn't know. So Scott, we will let you begin.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to talk about the 1041 regulations real quick, just because they are not a super common process that the county does. 1041 regulations are, it's a permit authority that the state gives the chance local governments and municipalities to adopt. And Larimer County has done so, and you can, as the county, you can regulate areas or activities of state interest. We don't have any areas of state interest with our regulations, but we do have activities. And these are things like new and converted power plants or reservoirs, pipelines, major transportation interchanges, and things like solar facilities. One unique aspect of the 1041 is that there's a mandated timeline, and it's very short. There's 90 days for that. So far, we've gone through steps 1 through 6, and we're now on step number 7, which is the land use hearing with county commissioners. After that would be the decision, and then one thing I wanted to note was that the technical review is not part of that timeline. So that part of the process takes a lot longer. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to have the public hearing, give another opportunity for public input, and ultimately you, the commissioners, will make a decision. So with that, if we dive into this presentation for this project, is the USS Welch Solar 1041 permit 25-Zone 3793. The site location is just outside the town of Berthoud. It's in the northwest corner of the first 90-degree bend of Highway 287. The Flying Guard Ranch is an equestrian facility. It is immediately to the north of the site, and then north of that and a little west too is the Midway Acres subdivision, second filing, and then Highway 287 on the east and south sides. Mary Schwartz is the property owner. The applicant is United States Solar, U.S. Solar. The entirety of the site is about 29.3 acres. There's rural residential zoning and land uses around it, as well as agricultural to the east and to the south. The main access, proposed access to the site, is on Hog Wild Road, which is in the northeast corner, as well as the secondary access on South Iowa Avenue, which is the northwest corner. There's no water supply to this or sewer. During construction, there will be water and temporary toilets provided. The site does fall within the Berthoud Fire Protection District. A little bit of background: the original application was submitted in 2023. The project went through the 1041 process to a certain point. There was neighborhood outreach. It was deemed complete and went to a planning commission, but the applicant voluntarily withdrew the application because of some coordination with Excel. The timing, I guess, was not right. The applicant can discuss that further if you would like. But they reapplied with Larimer County in May of 2025. These are some simulation photos that the applicant has provided. So in the top left corner would be the view from Hog Wild Avenue on the northeast corner looking south. In the lower middle, that would be from the bank of 287 from the southwest corner site looking to the northeast. And then the top right corner is kind of midway across the site looking to the east. I did want to point out some features on the site that affect the site design. So there's a railroad to the west right off site. There's also the handy ditch. That's the dark blue line that runs north-south. The tie-in for the site to Excel's infrastructure is in the lower left-hand corner, the southwest corner. and that's why there's a secondary access off of South Iowa Avenue. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But all of the solar facilities are to the east of the Handy Ditch. The red line, east-west running line, is an existing sanitary sewer line and associated easement. There's also no solar development north of that easement. There are there's a blue dot and a yellow dot. Blue dot is a water well and the yellow dot is an oil and gas well. Those are the approximate locations from the Division of Water Resources and the state EMC or ECMC, I think is the title for that handles oil and gas. Their databases are not very accurate, so those are approximate locations. The applicant submitted quite a few materials. As you can see, this is what they submitted for the 1041 permit, and that is what county staff and other referral agencies reviewed, and all of those are designed to address the review criteria. All of those materials were referred out to different agencies. Many of these are other county departments. Some are state agencies, some municipalities, as well as some utilities. All of those, most of those, I think there were 20 referral agencies that provided comments, and these 5 did not. There was also public notification. So a postcard notice was sent out in a 1,000-foot radius from the subject property. There was also a physical posting on this building, the county administrative building, also on the Larimer.org website. There was a press release in the Loveland Herald Reporter. Comments were also able to be submitted to the county's public engagement website, publicinput.com. There were also 2 newspaper articles, the Loveland Herald Reporter and the Berthoud Weekly Surveyor had articles. What we heard from referral agencies is there were a lot of comments. There was a lot of requested conditions of approval. The county engineering department had quite a few, as well as the health and environment department. We have staff from both of those departments here tonight. The town of Berthoud has some concerns, or some comments, I should say, particularly around landscaping. And the Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT, they had some comments as well, since they manage 287, and they're the ones who accept stormwater drainage. So from the publicinput.com website, we had a total of 29 comments as of noon today. In general, those concerns related to the effect or possible effects of the facility on nearby homes, glint and glare from the facility, the choice of land use for this parcel, potential impacts to property value, and also perceived impacts to the equestrian facility north of the solar facility. For a review criteria, 1041 permit is one of the more strict review mechanisms that the county has. So there are 22 review criteria, and I have the full text on slides if you'd like to see them, but you can generally group them into these 10 categories. They're intended to be fairly comprehensive, right, in what they review. I've mentioned conditions of approval, and I'll talk about them more, but they play an important role with 1041 projects because of that abbreviated timeline. They allow for other points to be held to and to guide the technical review process, to bridge any gaps between the project and the criteria and the review criteria, and also to help clarify how the project is implemented and operated. So it kind of guides the way for those future stages of review to make sure whatever's not able to be addressed during the actual 1041 permit review. Some of the more major concerns, engineering had some related to construction traffic impacts, and the applicant can discuss this further, but what the engineering department saw was that the Midway Acres subdivision roads were not in the best condition, and they were concerned about the amount of traffic and the weight of the vehicles that would be needed in order to construct that secondary access road for Excel. So from the time that the applicant applied, and then during discussions, the applicant has had some discussion with Excel to try to decrease the scale of that secondary access road to thereby decrease the amount of construction traffic. CDOT also has some comments, and it has to do with the stormwater flows. They only accept historical flows, so that drives some of the stormwater management design and the infrastructure on the site. The town of Berthoud had concern about landscaping. As I mentioned, it's a point of entry for their town, so they want something that looks aesthetically pleasing. The applicant has chosen to pursue an alternative landscape plan. This is an administrative process that the county has, and essentially, it's the idea is to have an appropriate solution to the problem. If you have the standard Article 4 landscaping standards, it can be a very big and large and expensive landscaping effort, but maybe to address the problem more appropriately, an alternative landscape plan is possible. It's a way to find that solution. Noise and glint and glare, this is driven by the equestrian facility, Flying R Ranch. One thing that I want to point out is that we have conditions 13 and 14 that address this. There will be post-construction noise monitoring, and the idea is to make sure that once operational, it meets the noise ordinance. And further mitigation can be required if those noise levels are exceeded. Also, the water and oil and gas wells, since they're these kind of unknown locations, the idea behind these conditions is to do some exploration to make sure no underground pipes are ruptured and cause an issue that way. Overall, we have 41 conditions of approval. That's a lot, but they're intended to address these 5 categories here. General conditions has to do with process and compliance and coordination between the applicant and the county and probably the town of Berthoud as well. Health conditions will address noise and air quality and the wells. Engineering conditions for protection of infrastructure, traffic, and stormwater. And construction permitting, there's a lot of permits beyond the 1041 permit that are required from the state, as well as the development construction permit or DCP and a development agreement. And this would also address a decommissioning plan. And finally, post-construction, the most major of which is revegetation of the site. So, between the submitted documentation, Article 4 development standards, and Article 10, which is the 1041 permit requirements, staff have found that the proposed application, case number 25, zone 3793, satisfies all applicable criteria as discussed in detail in the related staff report, subject to the implementation of the conditions of approval as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions right now? Commissioner Cavallis?
Thank you, Scott. So, in reading through the material, and there was a reference to the equestrian facility just north, the Flying Art Ranch. And in looking at the review criteria, A, for example, of the 22 criteria, mitigate impacts to property held by others. And as I read the letter from those folks and subsequent, and I look at the descriptions in the review criteria, I have to ask, how carefully did we look at the potential impacts on this horse farm that trains and boards horses and all the rest?
Of course.
Thank you.
I think one of the largest mitigating factors is the distance. So if you recall the sanitary sewer line, and there's no development of solar facilities north of that. So that includes the inverters and the things that make noise. So that would probably be the biggest mitigating factor, is that distance. I imagine that horses have some unique requirements, or they're not a cow, they're not a person, right? So what they need is a little bit different. There is Highway 287 that is immediately adjacent, so that is a degree of noise and disturbance as well. Leah's with the Health and Environment Department. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I mean, I appreciate that, and I realize that our We have noise level standards, 55 decibels. Correct me if I'm wrong, Leah. And again, the information we received from the owners of that facility, you know, speaking to that horses, they're much more sensitive to sound and noise. And how do we better understand that to make sure that there aren't unintended consequences on the animals and that facility? Well, and maybe that's for a later discussion. I guess
Well,
I'm trying to
if I
sort
might,
through all that.
Madam Chair, this
Yeah,
isn't the
please.
first
Planning
1041
manager.
solar farm that we've permitted through the county, and we have not had any other cases similar to this come up with the similar concerns related to farm animals or any sort of adjacent agricultural operations. We do have these in rural areas of the county where they've been proposed, and this hasn't come up before. So I think our staff does a really good job of being aware of what the latest and greatest information on land use cases are that we're dealing with. And so this is a little bit of something that we haven't heard about before, but are trying to do our best to address it through the conditions of approval in the case.
I would also mention that there's still some flexibility, right? So that condition 14 that I mentioned that requires post-construction noise monitoring, that allows for some further mitigation if needed. So if noise levels are too high, then there can be some other mitigation measures pursued, and that could be a mound, that could be something like a wall or fence or something. I don't know exactly, but the door is not closed tonight on further mitigation options.
Is the noise primarily during the construction period? Is that correct? And there's less or no noise during
There's the most noise during construction. That's
Right.
when there's pile drivers and
Sure.
and such. But then afterwards, there is a certain level of noise, and I imagine the applicant will talk about this some in their
Okay.
presentation. But inverters do make noise.
Okay.
There's a very small amount of noise made by the rotating of the panels,
Of the panels. Okay.
but I won't profess to be an expert on that.
Sure. Well, maybe it's good for us now to hear then from the applicants, and then we can kind of continue some of these discussions. So we'll ask the applicant to come up. And are you Haley? Yeah. Yeah, Haley. Welcome, Haley. So as we stated, you'll have the 10 minutes to speak, and you heard some of the questions, and whether you are going to discuss those during your presentation, or we can also call you up or have you stay here and ask some questions afterwards.
Yeah, I've got a presentation, and then we can touch on some of those as
That
well.
sounds
Some of this will
wonderful.
address it as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
But yeah, my name is Haley Valentine. I'm a project developer with US Solar. You can go to the next slide, Scott. Just to introduce US Solar, we are a developer, owner, and operator of solar generation and storage projects with a focus on emerging markets and community solar programs. We pride ourselves in building safe, beneficial, and reliable projects for the communities they serve. Next slide. So US Solar currently owns and operates 11 community solar gardens in the state of Colorado, ranging from 2 to 5 megawatts AC. US Solar has been working in the state since 2018. In May of 2025, the state of Colorado passed Senate Bill 207, the goal of which was to expand access to renewable energy. The bill implemented several new programs for distributed generation, which refers to projects that are 5 megawatts AC or less and connect directly to the distribution system. Next slide. So these types of projects have a number of benefits for the communities in which they're located. Instead of generating energy for the transmission system to be sent far away across state lines, the project connects directly to the local grid. The energy generated by this project will be used by homes, businesses, and other energy consumers in the area. It's likely that USS Welch will also be a community solar project, which means that these same consumers can subscribe to the project for a discounted rate and receive credits on their Xcel Energy bill. This is specifically beneficial for low-income customers in the area. Next slide. Oh wait, actually stay there, sorry. So one of the other benefits is this project will be seeded with a native pollinator seed mix. This is specifically formulated for this region of Colorado, and it's designed to improve soil conditions and water retention over time. Lastly, just to address some of the public comments that we received, USS Welch will not use any taxpayer dollars for the development or operation of the project. And in fact, the project will generate just over $400,000 of additional property tax revenue for the county throughout its operation. And you can go to the map now. Next slide. So this parcel is just over 29 acres. However, the array itself will take up just 12.3 acres. The site was chosen due to its proximity to Xcel distribution lines and the Berthoud substation. The land is being leased by US Solar from the current landowner. The landowner is part of a family of local farmers who have called this area home for several generations. When CDOT expanded Highway 287, irrigation on the site became difficult due to the risk of increasing flows into the right-of-way. Eventually, CDOT and the landowner entered into an agreement that the parcel would no longer be irrigated. So this is one of the main reasons that the landowner is pursuing the land lease for this project. The extended detention basin on the east side of the project is designed to control all water flows from the array footprint in case of a major rain event and ensure that historical flows remain the same. This basin is seeded with native grasses, so any water would eventually drain and evaporate, so there will be no drainage impacts or flooding as a result of the project. The project is also bordered by the handy ditch on the west side. Because the site is not irrigated, there's no lateral ditches on the property, and the presence of the project will not impact the ditch operations. Due to existing easements on the property, there are adequate setbacks from all of the property lines. Next slide. So as the owner and operator of our projects, we take pride in being a good neighbor, and it's our job to consider how the USS Welch project can coexist with the surrounding land uses. After our application was submitted, we sent letters to surrounding landowners to notify them of the project. I received just one phone call from a landowner who lives in Midway Acres neighborhood, and they expressed their concern for the project and said it was a preferred use over housing and other forms of urban development. We received written comments from other residents who share the same view. Flying Our Ranch submitted a letter as part of the public comment period to express some concerns that they had on the project. Following receipt of this letter, I met virtually with the business owners of the ranch on October 2nd, 2025, to provide additional information on the project. US Solar has thoroughly reviewed the public comments from Larimer County, Flying Our Ranch, and others in the community. We identified these key themes listed here on the screen that I would like to address today. Next slide, please. So the question of whether solar projects like USS Welch lead to a decrease in property value is a question we get a lot. There have been numerous independent studies performed by researchers and assessors to investigate the impact that solar has on property values. The collective results of this research tend to indicate that proximity to a solar farm does not deter sales of agricultural or residential land. Ultimately, the impact of solar on property values should be looked at in the context of what is the alternative use for this parcel. Under the agreement between the landowner and CDOT, this parcel can no longer be irrigated, so agricultural use of the land is limited. If not used for solar, this property would eventually be utilized for other forms of urban development, such as retail stores, lodging services, restaurants, and offices. The installation of the solar project on this parcel will help to maintain the rural nature of the area for as long as the project is operational. These types of solar projects do not resemble a commercial or industrial use. There are no storefronts or light pollution, and once construction is complete, there's no noise, odor, or dust. In a place like Colorado, this will help to maintain, if not improve, the property values for surrounding landowners and residences over time. Next slide, please. So as Scott mentioned, we will be pursuing the administrative process for alternative screening measures from what is currently shown in the plans. Given some of the concerns expressed by referral agencies and the public, there are several reasons why the current screening is not conducive to this particular site. According to the code, the intent of the prescribed landscaping is to provide aesthetic and visual screening along fences that are over a certain length. This was discussed during the Planning Commission hearing, and it was made clear by the Health Department as well that the landscape screening is not considered an effective measure for noise control. So ultimately, landscape screening in this case should be viewed as separate from noise mitigation. The screening also interferes with the ditch maintenance. It encroaches on the Handy's 25-foot maintenance area along the edge of their easement, and it introduces a fire hazard for routine burning of the ditch. The landscaping requires what is arguably an unnecessary use of water on a site that could rely entirely on rainfall and groundwater. Next slide. So the only noticeable noise from the project will be during construction. Pile driving is the loudest part of construction for a solar project, and this activity typically lasts between 7 to 10 days at the most. Total construction time for this type of project is 4 to 5 months. Once construction begins, we will take on-site measurements of the noise levels to ensure we're in compliance with the noise ordinance during pile driving and throughout construction. The only noise generated by the project once it's operating comes from the transformer and the inverters as they convert sunlight to electricity. These pieces of equipment will be located more than 400 feet from the nearest residence and Flying R Ranch. Noise at this distance measures at a decibel level that is much lower than noise that already exists on the nearby properties from the traffic on Highway 287, and they're well below the county's ordinance of 55 decibels or less. These low levels of noise will not be noticeable to surrounding property owners and are not perceived to have an impact on farm animals. We have animals on several of our sites already without issues, mainly sheep, but there's examples around the country of cows, pigs, and chickens all grazing beneath the panels. Next slide, please. So the main project access will be off of Hogwild Road. We construct the access roads first so that all construction traffic and deliveries can move directly onto the site. Right now, there's a second access road proposed off of East Iowa Ave, which would provide access for Xcel Energy to reach their interconnection equipment on the west side of the ditch. Since the Planning Commission hearing, we've been working with Xcel to explore moving this equipment to the east side of the ditch. This would eliminate the need for the access road off of East Iowa Ave and address the county's concerns regarding increased traffic on the neighborhood roads. Once the project is operating, visitation will be limited to 1 to 2 people with a pickup truck. These visits will occur bi-monthly for the first few years and biannually after that. Next slide, please. So USS Welch is not a concentrated solar array, so this means it does not use modules that focus reflected sunlight towards a single point, so it does not generate high levels of glare that are commonly associated with those projects. The panels that will be used are manufactured with a 2mm anti-glare coating, which ensures that they absorb as much light as possible rather than reflecting it. We also completed a glare study on USS Welch in 2023, which analyzed levels of glare that might impact air traffic and ground level viewers. The results showed that the levels of glare are well below levels that would cause after-image effect for a viewer, and therefore are not considered impactful. Last slide, please. So the question of whether solar projects pose a risk due to electromagnetic fields has been researched by several engineering research centers, as well as the National Renewable Energy Lab. According to the Air Force Civil Engineering Center, prior research and field investigations of electromagnetic emission from solar PV arrays concluded that they produce extremely low frequency EME, similar to electrical appliances and wiring. At a distance of 150 feet from the inverters, these fields drop back to very low levels of 0.5 milligauss or less, and in many cases to much less than background levels. Last slide. I'd just like to thank the commissioners, community members, and other stakeholders for your time today. We ask that you approve this application for a 1041 permit, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions as well.
Thank you, Haley. Questions for Haley while she's up here? Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you for being here today and your presentation and addressing some of already the comments. It's referred to as a land lease from the property owners, and I know those could be a very long period of time. I don't know if I read this or saw it, but I know I've had discussions on other properties. Is there a mitigation plan at the end of the lease if the lease ends and what is that plan the long term so that there's not just left it won't be abandoned?
Sure. Yeah.
And can you discuss some of that? So I know some of folks had expressed, what happens? Do they walk away and leave this? And so I just wanted to kind of address that, please.
Sure. Yeah, so we will enter into a decommissioning agreement with the county. I believe there's a bond that's required to be posted for decommissioning. The project infrastructure does still have value at the end of the life cycle. So the owner of the project would have a lot of incentive to go in and remove all of the project infrastructure that exists on the property at that time. So it's incredibly rare that these projects are ever abandoned. But again, that decommissioning agreement with the county would be established prior to the project being constructed.
Thank you. I know I had seen something, but I just wanted to kind of for the public benefit, and I appreciate your answer. That's all I have at this time. Thanks.
Commissioner Cavala's questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Holly, or Haley. Is it Haley?
Yes, Haley.
Ms. Valentine. One of the benefits of the proposed project, and believe me, I think whatever we can do to advanced renewable energy is important. But the pollinator garden, we see a nice picture of that. My understanding, I mean, there's no longer irrigated farming. There's no longer water to access to be able to do irrigated farming. So it's been dry land farming. If the intent is to plant native grasses and flowers and orbs, how will you water that vegetation so that and whatever landscaping you do as well, that's until it actually gets established.
Sure. So we have a vegetation management plan that we submitted as part of our packet and our submission materials, and we typically will truck in water from elsewhere in order to water the vegetation for the first several years, so that it can establish and that we can ensure the vegetation is taking nicely to the land. And this also includes weed control and mitigation. It will include routine mowing and things of that nature. Just to ensure that it establishes.
That's helpful. And how, I mean, as part of your plan, how often will you be trucking in water? Because we've had experiences elsewhere where we've tried to create landscaping with a facility up north that's part of the county, and we haven't had success in terms of trees being established and so forth.
Yeah, so the native grasses and pollinator habitat on site are expected to take pretty well to the groundwater and rainfall of the area. As I said, that's specifically formulated for this region. One of the reasons we're pursuing the alternative landscaping is because what's currently on the plans and is prescribed is really designed for fences that are over a certain length. And so in this case, just due to the nature of the site and some of the other challenges that I mentioned, that's why we're pursuing the alternative, so that we can come up with better ways, because there is that risk of some of the trees not taking, because it is a lot of water use. If you were to refer to the current landscape plan, it's a number of trees, a number of shrubs, and various things of that nature. So that's one of the reasons we're exploring alternatives to that.
Maybe one last question, please. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I guess regarding the noise issues, I think it's a good point. I think Scott and others may have made it that the traffic noise, Highway 287, is probably pretty significant, and that's close to the horse farm. I'm wondering, has anyone done any type of noise analysis to determine if and when the community solar farm is established, what its noise production and how that compares to the traffic noise?
Yes, I believe that the county health department did do a analysis of that. I did not see the results. I don't know if anyone can speak to it.
Yeah, I actually went out and took measurements at the highway. So, do you want? So when we were I went out on site, and we actually got readings when there was like a low in traffic. The background ambient noise was about 58 decibels, which is around our noise ordinance. And then when we actually had traffic going through, and mind you, this was at 3 p.m, when we actually have busy traffic, schools getting out, jobs, things like that. Highway traffic was about 60 to 67 decibels, A-rated decibels. And then we even had some go all the way up to 74 just because of the type of vehicle that drove by. You have to remember we have we have transport trucks going through that area. We have, just really souped up trucks going through that area. It was very interesting. But yes, and then when we were looking at the noise that was coming off the inverters and the transformers, they are placed further south on this parcel, so that we do have over 400 feet from the major noise sources. And our sound levels are going to get as low as, I have one, at 400 feet, the transformers would be about 37 decibels. And then another, I only did this one up to 150 feet, but the inverters that they have, they estimate about 65 decibels at 3 feet. And then when you're over 150 feet, it's at 32. So it will keep going down with distance, which again, they're at 400 feet about.
Thank you. That's all.
Anything else? Commissioner, any other questions?
No.
Okay. We'll have you sit down, Haley. We'll move to public comment and then we'll bring you back up for rebuttal. Ryan, do we have people sign up?
Yes, we have 3 people signed up.
Okay.
First, we have Jep Semin, followed by Kathy Riley and Justin Riley.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Jep Seaman. I'm an attorney, land use attorney, and engaged by the owners of the Flying R Ranch, which has been referenced this evening. The ranch is located just to the north of the proposed project location. Before I make any comments, I want to start by saying nothing I say tonight is intended to undermine the exemplary work by your staff or to comment or make judgment on solar facilities generally. We're here tonight to urge you to reject the 1041 application, principally because this is an industrial scale facility in a very poor location as it relates to my client's property. We consider the application to be deficient and the hearing record deficient as well as it relates to Articles 4 and 10 of your land use code. Our principal concerns are threefold. One, impact to other landowners, property owners. As Commissioner Cavallis pointed out, that's the first element of the criteria for a 1041 review. This project will have tremendous impact on my client's property and operations, and there's little, if any, mitigation, enforceable mitigation in the record or in the application if you approve it tonight. Secondly, impacts to water, riparian areas, wetlands. We've heard there's an agreement with CDOT to allow historic flows into the 287 drainage system. We don't see anything in the record that backs that up with a documentation, nor do we know that would be sufficient to avoid the detrimental impact that the criteria requires you to consider. The third item is really less code specific than it is just general transparency. We've heard a lot tonight about notification to landowners, and we're happy that occurred. We heard about one meeting with my client, landowner, but there's been very little, I would say no dialogue with landowners regarding mitigation and other steps that could be taken to make this project more possibly sufferable for the horse farm and others. I lament the fact that Larimer County does not have any code as it relates to industrial scale renewable facilities. And as such, then the criteria that you're reviewing are somewhat insufficient relative to the type of project that this is. Other places are adopting code as it relates to industrial scale renewables to place those facilities in rural and industrial locations, require buffer zones and setbacks, landscaping, etc. Let me finish where I started, which is to, again, urge your rejection of the 1041 application tonight. We believe the application and the hearing record are defective. Alternatively, you could continue this matter to another date and allow us some time to work through some of these things.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, who's the next speaker?
Kathy Riley.
Could we switch places? Would that be all right?
Yeah,
Yes,
of course.
fine by me.
Okay, sweet.
Good evening. I'm Justin Riley. I believe Jeff hit really hard on what we're really focusing on, so I would like to focus a lot on what my main issues with this would be is my horses. I'm a part owner, but I'm the manager and the head trainer of the facility. And I did a small, I know it doesn't count much as research, but I was just curious on like what, because sound is going to be one of my biggest things that I care about with these horses, because they can hear down to a 6 decibel level. And we bought a sound recorder just to see what the levels are at our facility. And I will admit, yes, our ranch can get up to 70 decibels just from the highway noise. But a lot of our horses are athletes, and I do consider them as athletes. when at night we were getting down to 30 decibels, and according to some of the research that Haley gave me, that is a constant 45 decibel level of hearing still at 150 feet. If that is the case, the horses are still hearing at a level that is going to be higher for them to not even be able to just relax. Because of being them athletes, I would like them to be able to just relax at night, get back their energy, so that the next day they're still ready to go and compete wherever I want them to be. With having horses that are at a level to where I'm competing at national, international levels, I need them to be at their best. And if this affects me, this affects my business as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Riley. That's Kathieriley. In addition to owning Flying R Ranch with my son, I'm also an attorney here in Loveland. I'm attorney actually in Loveland. My attorney, Jep, had prepared a letter for use tonight, but had not submitted it to the record. May I do that at this time?
You hand that to the planning manager. She can make sure we get that.
There are a couple things I heard tonight that I just wanted to kind of reiterate. The county has never put a solar facility next to an equestrian facility, and that's admitted here in the county. In talking with this particular applicant, I asked the question, can you give me people to contact that I can confirm that your solar facilities work well next to an equestrian facility? What she did is provide me two. They're not their facilities. She searched around the nation. She found two places in the United States that she was able to provide me where there's an equestrian facility of some sort next to a solar facility. One was the solar facility was built by the equestrian facility. Very different circumstance there, because whatever the negative effects are, it was self-inflicted. It's not a situation that we have here where whatever the negative effects are of this facility are being inflicted on us against our will. The other one was a woman who apparently has a horse facility of some size next to one of the solar facilities, and apparently had called in a concern that there was stray voltage affecting her horses in the horse tank. And the solar facility came out and did some testing, said life's good, everything's fine, don't worry about that. But that name was blackened out. I could not contact that woman to say, well, why did you think that there might be extraneous solar in affecting your horses in their horse tank? So the issue is we're in an unknown zone. And this is a situation where while your applicant is telling you there are lots of studies, there are still lots of studies ongoing because the questions of the impact of these solar facilities are still out there, and they are still very big and real concerns. The best guidance that I can find with horse facilities and solar actually comes out of the UK. And based upon the input that they had, they don't put them next to horse facilities. An equestrian facility is on the don't install it here list. When you look across the nation, there are every county and every state is struggling with the burgeoning solar power sorts of facilities coming on board, and they're all struggling in some fashion. But if you're looking at this facility, it doesn't even begin to meet any of the other counties where they've looked at how much of a setback is needed. 200 feet is nothing compared to the other counties. But thank you for your
Ms.
time
Riley.
tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak on this topic in the audience? Ryan, is there anyone online who wanted to speak?
If there are any members of the public online who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. We have no hands raised.
Last opportunity for anyone in the public. All right, seeing no hands raised, we'll close public comment, and we'll ask the applicant to come back up, and you'll have 5 minutes of rebuttal.
Thank you. So first, I did want to address the term that they were using, like industrial and utility scale. There's a big difference between an industrial scale solar project and what this project is. The total parcel is just over 29 acres. The solar array in this case is going to sit on just 12.3 of those acres. These projects are, significantly less impactful than some of the large grid scale projects. So I just wanted to make that distinction clear that this is not an industrial utility scale solar facility. This is considered distributed generation, which is of a smaller scale. And in terms of, drainage review and technical review, we did work with the Division of Water Resources on the drainage basin design. We have used, their calculations that they use specifically for solar facilities to determine if historic flows are being maintained or not. The whole purpose of the detention basin, and it was designed specifically to ensure that the historical flows going into the CDOT right-of-way are maintained. So this detention basin is, it's an extended detention basin, so it's actually seeded with native grasses, so it's not made out of concrete. So it's, designed to fit in well with the surrounding nature of the other land. And the other piece I heard was just with regard to the noise again. So the inverters and the transformers, those are located more than 400 feet, I think just over 400 feet from the property boundary of Flying R Ranch, as well as the residential properties on the west side of the project. At 400 feet, these levels should be well below 30 decibels at their property boundary. I think that this is, well below the ordinance, and it's also well below what they mentioned they're hearing even at nighttime in the quiet rural area. And then on we do not provide information for other landowners, other property owners next to projects. It's just something that our company doesn't do. So that was the reason why we didn't offer any contacts for the landowner of Flying R Ranch. And then, I think there's, like our planner said, there's a lot of space still for future mitigation if that is an issue with regards to noise. We strongly believe that this is not going to cause any type of issue. The setbacks are adequate here from the infrastructure that could cause noise, and that will be making noise. So this should be, well addressed. And if it is an issue, there's ways that this can be mitigated in the future. I don't think there's reason to believe that it can't be. And then lastly, I did just want to touch on the benefits of this project just with regard to low income subscriptions. Under the state program, up to, I think it's actually minimum 50% of the project is required to be subscribed to low income subscribers. This is offered at a discount rate that's 20% of what the bill credit is. So it can end up in thousands of dollars of savings for low income residents in the county. So there's a huge benefit to having this project be here. Again, it's regardless of whether you're subscribed to the project or not, it's putting clean energy directly onto the grid. So I'm happy to answer any further questions as well.
Thank you, Haley. Any questions for Haley while she's up here? Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
I don't know if we could pull up a map about the property to the north of what's proposed, and maybe
Sure.
Kind of showing. I just want to kind of talk about that.
I can walk through that as well.
We're working on it. 1 second.
No,
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I would refer to a page, but there's several pages with all the maps on it. So
Still working on it.
Any other questions while we're looking for the map?
I guess while we're talking and waiting, my question was going to be, when I look at the map and I see there's a buffer or a setback from the property line, can you talk through, you talked about the fence wouldn't be adequate or the landscaping that, some of the alternative plans.
Mhm.
Was there any consideration about extra mitigation on that northern end of the property just to be more sensitive to the horses and the training, especially maybe during this construction area? Just I'm curious about looking at that north end of having maybe an extra layer of mitigation to kind of
Mhm.
help buffer you know the the ranch there,
Mhm.
the horse ranch.
Yeah, so I think, one of the reasons for pursuing that alternative screening measure is for exactly that purpose, so that we can work more with the landowners specifically and kind of cater any mitigation to their specific needs. So we haven't fully explored any of those yet, but we have done that a lot in the past with other landowners. So I think there's plenty of room to be able to come up with something that would help them, whether that's a fence or, something like that.
Can you, I'm not sure if I might, Madam Chair, can you or Mr. Benton explain maybe a little more for the public, but looking and reading and trying to understand this
Mhm.
alternative plan, mitigation plan, can you just expand or clarify a little bit of what that will entail, and what is, when would that be decided before earth starts getting moved and things?
The the alternative landscaping plan, that's an administrative process, and that would happen during the technical review. So the technical review would take several months. It's an iterative process. So during that process, we would also do the alternative landscaping process.
And Scott, would the county be in those meetings along with the applicant to work and discuss with the landowners to really specifically look at that northern edge of the property and the mitigation to address further mitigation, just to lessen any kind of impacts from the project?
Yeah. So the planning director would be the decision maker on that. So that would be Rebecca, if she's here. So yes, the county would absolutely be involved in all those conversations.
Okay. And then I don't know if the applicant or if Mr. Ben wanted to share there's the train tracks there. Do we know? I don't know. I was trying to find that earlier today. How much train traffic is there, or is it a very vacant, used or not well used train?
I'm not aware of the traffic on those tracks over there. However, I think, as you can see up there, so the property boundary, the purple line furthest to the east, the train tracks are on the other side of that. So we're well away from those train tracks.
Yeah, I'm just also thinking that between the highway and the train, there's just a lot of
Yeah,
noise in this
certainly.
area. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also, just with regard to the mitigation plan, I think part of, initially we're going to pursue an alternative to, first it's removal of the landscape plan that's currently there. And then I think it's a more in-depth assessment of what actually needs to be mitigated here. If there's actually noise that is greater than noise that already exists, that is coming specifically from the solar project, then sure, that could be mitigated. But I think a lot of what we're seeing, and based on research that the county health department has done, other projects that we have built, these impacts are going to be very minimal.
and then maybe just I'll ask one more and let my colleagues have any further questions. I know CPW had some concerns, and Mr. Leslie, or the Northeast Regional Manager, did talk about the recommendation not to be lit at night. Also, I know we have downward face night sky recommendations, and I'm wondering, there's been a lot of elk wandering around Berthoud and kind of around my area, and I'm just wondering, is there what kind of lighting this would be at all on this project? For construction and then ongoing at night and for the duration of the project.
Lighting, you said?
Yeah.
So the project will not have any on-site lights at all. So there won't be any light pollution associated with the project. During construction, all of that occurs during the day. So there's not going to be, the bright lights that you sometimes see on like road construction, things like that. Those won't be needed on the site. Yeah.
I think that's what I had read, but I just wanted to clarify because I was going back to refer to the CPW report. I wanted to make sure. And so that would be part of the conversation with alternative plans, just looking, I think that was what a condition of the approval was in this, was the CPW talk. So, and then if I might, Madam Chair, I guess I said it, one last question, but you said 14 you felt addressed, condition 14 addressed future mitigation issues in case there was some things came up. Can you expand on how that condition approval has been written to allow for flexibility for future things that might come up? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, the way that's worded is that post-construction, once it's operational, then there's noise monitoring within 30 days, I think is what it is, once operational. And then if the noise levels are too high, which currently are for our noise ordinance levels, then there can be further mitigation to try to take care of that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I think that's all I have for now.
Oh,
Nope. Good.
Okay. Commissioner Falls?
Thank you. Thank you. Could you speak to, it's related to review criterion C. The applicant has provided an alternatives analysis, attachment Q, and it talks about a central database and consisting of separate layers. Can you, ultimately you went through this methodology, which I'd like to better understand, and you determined that this was the best location for the solar farm. And I think your point is well taken that this solar farm is different than an industrial scale solar array. But could you speak to that, please? How did you come to that conclusion that this was the best location? And of course, there was apparently a willing landowner,
Sure.
to lease the land for the solar.
Sure. So one of the biggest reasons this site was chosen is because of its proximity to the Berthoud substation as well as the Excel distribution lines. So the Berthoud substation, I don't think we can see it on this map, but Highway 287, goes along the south side of the project. Berthoud substation is located just to the south of the highway. Yeah, there's a depiction in my presentation. So the Berthoud substation you can see there outlined in yellow. The blue line there going up north represents the three-phase distribution lines. That's what we have to interconnect to for these the distribution level projects. So that was another reason that it was chosen. It has a flat topography. There's no on-site wetlands. It's outside of any floodplains. And ultimately, when we reach out to landowners, we gauge their interest in what do they want to use this property for. Because the site is not irrigated, CDOT and the landowner entered into an agreement that it wouldn't be irrigated. So currently it's used for dryland farming, so alfalfa, other things like that just rely on the groundwater and the rainfall. This was another reason why they are eager to have a different use for this parcel. I think that, putting solar there as opposed to other forms of urban development, once the project is removed, it can be returned back to agricultural land, open space. It kind of, preserves that status because it's not a fully permanent use on the property. Whereas, if you're going to build housing, other urban development, storefronts, things like that, it's a lot more permanent than something like this. So.
Did you have another question, Commissioner?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Shattuck McNally? All right, Haley, we'll let you sit down and
Sounds good.
we'll see if there's any questions for staff before we start deliberating. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess I'd like to ask Scott and Leah. I mean, I guess, we have to abide by what's in the code as far as the 55 decibels? That doesn't really take into consideration other issues that have been raised tonight about the potential impact on the horses. And so how do we make sure that with any additional mitigation and sound monitoring and all of those kinds of things, how do we make sure that we are doing our best to address those concerns?
You want to take a step first?
You can go.
All right. Well, yes, and that is accurate. Our noise ordinance, and which is part of our county codes, that is only for the protection of humans. It does not. We don't address animals, livestock. Dogs also can hear a lot quieter decibels, and if you guys are looking for more compatibility, we would be open to some suggestions. But for us, I only have the noise ordinance to go by. And when we do the noise analysis, they would check like daytime levels because we have sun out, we're doing different activities, where we actually have power being converted to energy, or sunlight being converted to energy, and then at night there's less activity going on at the site. But we can ask for daytime and evening readings just to make sure that we have both time periods covered. And then mitigation could be anything like, earthen burns. Again, solid walls are usually the best way to mitigate noise. And right now that would, if we did some type of earthen berm or even put a wooden fence above that, that would be the best way to mitigate noise. It could help with glare for the concern for the horses. But do know my limitations are humans and our ordinance.
A nice thing about technical review is that it is not set to this short timeline as the 1041 permit. So that would be the time to explore anything else. I don't know if this is a possibility. That's why we have technical review. If it's possible to move the inverter, which I think is the main noise producing feature of the facility, if it's possible to move it further south, further away from Flying R Ranch. Again, that's something that has to be looked at technically. I'm not a solar farm engineer either.
And if I might just provide a little bit of higher level perspective on some of this, while this property is currently zoned RR2 in the county, it is within the town of Berthoud's comprehensive plan, and within that comprehensive plan, it's designated as a suburban business character district. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Leah, but that actually allows for higher noise ordinance levels than a residential development would. So if this were to be annexed, which it has the contiguity to be, in the town of Berthoud, it could be developed as a higher noise creating land use, potentially.
Commissioner Shattuck McNally?
So I'm curious with the technical review and part of the process going forward, is a best practice or maybe a decent idea to consult with a lot of our equine experts at CSU with veterinary school and maybe have that be part of the conversation, just thinking, I live out in the unincorporated parts of the county and I have horses around me, and sometimes my neighbors call and say, turn off all the lights. The horses are out in our yard and lose them across the street. We don't want them getting hit by a car. And mostly because it happens a lot. So, but I know also bursts of sounds come from, we're near some construction, we have fire trucks come and the bursts of sounds come. So I know we have some subject matter experts on horse sensitivities and activities. And so I think if we could, I don't know if we can suggest or ask that maybe bringing some of those experts into the conversation for the our for that review or that technical review might be good, just to make sure this is thoughtful about not impacting a business that has a very very unique and special animals and creatures that are sensitive and I know having been to Hearts and Horses and other places where the horses are very sensitive to human beings' feelings and helping with behavioral health issues. They're very sensitive animals, so I know we would like to maybe make sure that that's taken into consideration. And I know I just want to clarify one more time, Leah. You said I see this, and I'm glad this is here. I have two questions. The 250 feet, that's just to that fence line, but the horses are more to the east, so it might be even more of a buffer than the 230 feet. And where did you say the decibels went down below 30? Was that 150 feet?
Yeah. Hold on. Yes. So for the inverters, which are kind of down in that middle area of the arrays, we're anticipating 65 decibels. That's at 3 feet, and then at 150 feet from that line dividing the blue sections. 150 feet from that, you'd get 32, and then we have another 200 feet from the edge of the solar to the ranch above. And yes, and the horses are kind of on the west side, so they're protected. They have their barn and a house on the east side.
Okay.
And then the transformers, which are the louder of the two heavy equipment, 79 decibels at about 3 feet, and then at 150 feet it would be 45 decibels, but at 400 we're at 37. And my calculations do not take into account mitigation.
Okay. And then can staff tell me what that other lighter blue building is that's in the picture?
That's the detention pond,
Okay.
stormwater detention.
Okay, so that helps. I just want to make sure that was another building creating noise. Okay, that's very helpful. And is that something we could consider? Is asking, can we request that CSU or the Equine Center or those veterinary experts could be part of that administrative technical review?
Of course, yeah.
Would we need to make that a condition, or is that just something we make a suggestion to? I'm looking at our county attorney. Can we just make that? Can we make that as a suggestion, or do we need to make a condition of approval?
My guidance, my name is Christine Luckison. I'm with the county attorney's office. My guidance would be to craft a condition, and I can work with Scott on this, that does not impose requirements that are stricter than our current noise ordinance. So if there is a conversation with Colorado State or any other expert that any outcome of that conversation could not impose stricter requirements than our noise ordinance has already established.
Okay. But we can. I just want to make sure they're bringing in some horse experts about horse, scientists. That's kind of what I want to have them be part of the conversation.
Yeah, but I do want to kind of reiterate what Christine just said, is that we can't impose noise restrictions that are lower because that doesn't exist in our code. So we can't say that they have to, they're if they're already meeting the noise, boundaries that we have, we can't say, well, they're horses. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to come off here as saying I don't care about horses, but I mean that we can't impose something that doesn't exist in our code because of, even if we consult with horse experts. I mean, if they're meeting the code, if they're meeting the sound requirements, they're meeting the sound requirements. Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Christine. And those are, I mean, your points are well taken. It's insightful because we have to abide by what's in county law ordinance. But can we still consult? And going back to that number 14 condition of approval, not require, but really encourage as much as we can to work with the experts and look at additional mitigation measures. Recognize that we can't require it, but in terms of trying to make this more compatible with a business and a facility that this is. I really want to. I want to approve this, and I want to also feel like we're not harming this business and this facility and how they train and take care of their horses. So we can't require it.
Yeah, and we can craft a condition that requires, as part of the technical review process, that the experts are consulted, and I can work with Scott to put that together quickly for your review, and then the applicant can also review it as well.
And that will lead to any additional mitigation measures or best practices to try to address, again, not requiring, but trying to get agreement, to address some of these issues.
Yes, we can create it. I will be frank in my guidance that I think it will be an aspirational condition,
Aspirational, whatever you
but
like.
it's something that we can create.
Madam Chair, might I just clarify, would this be at the cost of the applicant, not at the cost of the county for this additional assessment? Is that the intent?
I'm not in support of this condition, so I would ask the people that are.
I'm not even sure what that would be, or maybe CSU would be interested in, maybe not being in charge. I don't know what that would be. I hadn't thought of that, but usually educational institutions like to, this might be an area of interest for them for other projects. I'm just curious. So I wouldn't want it to be, we could craft it so if it is an expense that it's an aspirational goal just to explore that and maybe seek out guidance. I'm not trying to. I just wanted to at least maybe see if we could get some more expertise just to make sure if that number 14 is there that we're just addressing that. I wasn't trying to make tighter recommendations. I just thought there was another subject matter expert to maybe bring into the conversation just to have a little guidance for any other any other mitigation things that might be considered.
So free is great, but we do have language in Article 10 where if we don't have the expertise on hand, that we can find that expertise, and that in those cases are paid for by the applicant.
Okay.
And just to follow up on Scott's comment, I think if there is going to be a cost associated with this, it is going to be difficult for there to be a nexus between that requirement and our review criteria, because we are imposing a cost that is not tied potentially to a regulation that we have established.
That's helpful. Thank you.
All right. So, do we want to? Do we have questions further? I mean, I don't know where this stands as a condition because of the discussion that just happened. I mean, my suggestion would be that we work with Leah and make sure that we're kind of under the decibels, that the that we do our best to, make sure that we're under the constraints that we have. I don't know about consulting an equestrian folks. If there's no nexus and then we have to pay for it and we're going to try to get CSU to do this consulting work for free, like I don't know how feasible that feels to me. So, I think that, I mean, if we're moving some of the noisier things, we're also getting next to people's houses too at some point. And so moving things around on the site, that could be tricky. I mean, I think we're trying to balance the needs of all the surrounding neighbors. So I don't know where we want to go from there, but I think we should move into deliberation at some point.
Well, Madam Chair, I just want to say I'm not asking to move things around or move it closer to houses. My goal with all this was just, I think, go back to where I started, was that northern border just having mitigation levels, whether it be a berm or trees or something that is already being considered anyway, with alternative landscaping, I think it was, or alternative plan. right? And
Well, so to clarify, trees are not really considered an adequate noise mitigation.
okay,
So, but it would have to be burning or wall or something like that.
yeah. So I'm just, I'm just curious about exploring that just to address the concern. And so that was where I was coming from, is just not moving things south or south or anything. I just wanted to see what other, especially on that northern edge, if there was just other mitigation, opportunities with the alternative landscaping or a berm, or because it said like the fencing. And I know there was some things from CPW with that anyway. So I was just wanting to explore it, at least try to address, any further noise mitigations. But I go back to, this is already a very busy corner, and so, but I just wanted to open this up to maybe looking at getting some feedback or input from subject matter experts that maybe I hadn't heard them being used before. Thank you.
All right, well, go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, perhaps one way to simplify this is to either strengthen that condition 14 or perhaps add another one that would allow for the applicants, and maybe it might, with your permission, we might want to ask the applicant or Haley to come up and see what they're willing to do. In other words, the applicants to work with our planners, to work with the impacted landowners, to look at what is, after doing the noise analyses, what is feasible to further address sound noise issues.
But if they come within, you're saying even if they come within the 55 decibels, to still ask them to do more?
Ask them, we can't require them.
I guess, Haley, will you come up and just maybe address some of what you're hearing?
Oh, gosh, thank you. Sorry.
I'm going to have Jake Bobrow as well come up as our VP of Project Development to help address this.
Yeah, Jake Bobrow. Thanks for having me here, commissioners. I'd say we want to be good neighbors. That's always core to our mission. That's why we're in this business. So we're more than happy to do anything we can to mitigate the noise. I just want to call out two things. One, we have placed the inverters and transformers where they are, so by the time you walk by the fence, it is barely a noticeable noise at all, and certainly below the background noise from the highway. Two, those noises happen during the day when we're producing energy and when the trackers are moving, and that's not happening at night. So certainly like to further address the concern of the horses being able to be restful.
Thank you.
But all that said, we're more than happy to continue to have a conversation with both Flying our ranch and the planning staff to figure out additional testing or whatever we need to do. We're happy to talk to horse experts, but I would think the standard here would be, if we're creating noise that's above the background noise, certainly that's something that's worth discussing. But I think in this case, it's pretty clear we're not.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's move into deliberation. And then if one of the commissioners wants to suggest a condition, you're welcome to do that. So Commissioner Shattuck McNally, will you get started?
Well, first, thank you everyone for being here tonight. Certainly we've had a lot of 1041s this year, and they've all been unique, and we've had one that was 11,000 pages. So certainly this one doesn't. You're not in the top. Let's see. But you might be in the top 3 or 4, I think. But all joking aside, we had a very robust 1041 process and tools in the toolbox, just for this reason, to make sure that we're looking at all the impacts and making sure that we can make these projects that go forward that with the least amount of impacts on the neighbors, and also making sure we're thinking a lot about wildlife and all the consequences of having some of these projects. And I think I appreciate the people coming, the residents and the owners of the of the ranch and the horse training to come forward and sharing their concerns. And I know there was some comments about defective application, but I do feel that this is a pretty comprehensive and thorough packet, and I appreciate the referral agency comments that were addressed, and there is several conditions of approval. I appreciate staff's very thorough addressing of all those concerns and condition approvals, and the way they have addressed potential sound valuations in the future with condition 14, and I believe that was really a good idea for addressing this. I do. There's all these different criteria that we have, and a lot of the visual quality and the soil conditions. And I, as going through and kind of as I went through all the criteria and went through the packet and kind of did my little checklist of, okay, yep, I see that's been addressed and rate that. And then the presentation today, um, I think it's really important that there are review criteria, and the first one is the project will mitigate impacts to property held by others. And so I think that's kind of where a lot of my questions came today. And I do think that they have considered alternate siting and design alternatives. And I do think this is between where this could be with a business section. It could be louder, and also being close to XL and the substation. It's very uniquely situated, and with no more water on the property, of course, it can't be agriculture. And I like it being being reseeded as pollinary garden. That's very important, I think, for our area. And we know there's some pretty active bee operations in the parts of Berthoud that are, you know, in that area. So I think it's a great location for this project. I do believe, from what I've been reading, that all the criteria have been met. I believe there's 22 of them, and I think they have been addressed with all the mitigation problems or conditions and the project impact on the nature. All the scope of the nature of the project is not a duplication of service. Obviously, the electric, telephone, all those are addressed, hazardous substance. And then I do want to address kind of just worrying about how this impacts the neighbors to the north. And I do appreciate the comments that were just made, and I hadn't really made that connection, is that at night, those they will not be moving or making a lot of noise because there is no light, so it will be quieter. So that was something I had not quite made that connection. So thank you for your comments. That was helpful for me to make sure that at night it's not this constant 24 hours of sound. It gets a little bit of break because, at 2 or 3 a.m. there's not cars on the highway. And I know I'm always grateful that there's at least some time where there's not cars or farm equipment coming down the highway and waking me up. And it starts around 5 a.m. In the harvest season. So I'm always, it's a nice way to wake up, but sometimes you like to sleep a little longer. So I do think I agree. We can't really make a condition of approval to require tighter conditions of sound than what's required by our code. But I do think that in my spirit of trying to work with the administrative review and be good neighbors, which I think is really important for these projects, that maybe we're consulting, if there's ability to consult, maybe CSU be willing to, even talk to someone for a few minutes on the phone. I just don't think we need to have a full consulting thing. I just feel like that might be a chance just to learn something, and maybe for you all going forward, I'm sure this won't be the last time you run into this question, so it might be beneficial for everyone to learn a little bit from some of those amazing folks at CSU. And then I really want to stress, I appreciate addressing in the conditions about the CPW concerns, and there is a lot of these conditions of approval that I feel address some of my concerns. So with that being said, after this hearing and hearing from the applicants and from the property owners to the north and other folks, and reading through all the other public comments, I do feel that this has satisfied all the robust things we have put into this 1041 process and criteria and code. And so I do feel, as long as I feel like that technical review, I think the spirit of being good neighbors and working together is understood and maybe doesn't need to be required. I can support this application going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kapalis.
I think the sticking point is the first review criterion A, and I would like to respectfully ask that with regard to condition of approval number 14, it that some words are inserted or a sentence is inserted after where it says to comply with the county, and by the way, there's a typo there, county noise ordinance for uses adjacent to residents, and then something to the effect that it is encouraged that the stakeholders, I think as I think I heard the folks say, work with the adjacent landowners to consider additional noise mitigation measures. Again, the word is encourage, not require. If we insert that somewhere, that would make it easier for me to support this.
Yeah, we have drafted some language. We can either add it as, to the end or add it to number 14. I'll do whatever you think, Christine.
Can you tell us what that language is, or what the county attorney thinks?
So that would read, the applicant is encouraged to consult with an equestrian expert or researcher at the applicant's sole expense to identify best practices for noise mitigation that may benefit the adjacent equestrian operation.
Would that be acceptable to you or not, Madam Chair?
I'm fine with that. I didn't know if we wanted them to consult with the equestrian or we just wanted them to explore additional ways to mitigate sound.
I was moving in that direction, not necessarily an added cost of consulting, although your point is well taken, Commissioner, that the folks at CSU maybe just be able to. But I don't know if it's fair to ask them to provide that kind of service or pro bono. But I was just where I was trying to go with this, and that is that the applicant and the adjacent landowners, and our folks, we would work together to identify additional noise mitigation measures. Even though that's not required by the county ordinance, because the county ordinance apparently is just set up to protect humans and not anything else besides humans. And that's a point that was made that this is an unknown kind of a situation. And no one's to be judged or at fault for that. It's just a very unique situation, frankly. And I'm just trying to find a tiny bit of middle ground that will help me feel a little more comfortable in supporting this 2 megawatt solar array.
In that case, we could say the applicant is encouraged to explore at the applicant's sole expense additional methods to mitigate noise in a way that may benefit the adjacent equestrian operation.
Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And I do, Commissioner, I hear your point about mitigation for the homes, but I do think when we do referral agencies to talk about wildlife and there was some reference to things, I do think we do try to take that into consideration. But I know this is very close to in a facility, and I just agree that I think it would be great to have. We already have some other on the page 350 talking about that other folks had asked for additional mitigation measures. So in the theme of that, thinking I can be okay with that. Encourage
I encourage what?
whatever he had said in the beginning
Yeah,
of
I what Scott, what you just said, I think is what I'm trying to get at. That we're focused on trying to address the potential impact on these high quality animals that are in competitive animals. All that. That's
No,
and
I'm fine with that. We have, I would say we have 41 conditions. I mean, my fear is that, I think this is a great project. I think we really need to encourage alternative energy.
I agree.
I feel like 41 conditions is a lot. And so if the commissioners want to add this, and the developers are okay with this, then let's do it.
And again, if it's the issue of adding, it can just be inserted in number 14. I think that's fine too.
So Scott, on that motion, if you're gonna have a proposed motion, it will say with the amended condition 14. And then when I clean up the document, I will have that in there.
All right.
Can we just kind of get a affirmation or something from the applicant if this is satisfactory or
I've seen nodding heads,
okay.
but
All right, thank you.
There's a thumbs up right there.
Thank you, Christine.
All right, Commissioner, anything else with your deliberation?
Nope. Otherwise, I think with that understanding and that added language in condition of approval number 14, I can support this 1041 permit application for a 2 megawatt solar array, solar garden that meets the our comprehensive plan requirements and a variety of all the other 21 review criteria plus some of the sub criteria.
Yeah, I support the application. I think it's really important for us to get, if we're ever going to get to 100% renewable, we have to get going on that. I can't almost think of a better location for this in some ways. Adjacent to a highway where there's already noise, in a spot where there can't, we can't have any, there can't be any regular farming, kind of better than a McDonald's or something else being there. So I think that this is a really great use of land that doesn't have a lot of uses that are, that are appropriate, sort of adjacent to sort of these rural and smaller developments. So I am in support of this. I was in support of it with the 41 things, and this is not industrial scale. So I just want to thank you for pointing that out. I think that that's really important to say. This is the kind of kind of small distribution that we want throughout neighborhoods and areas of our community so we can get to 100% renewable at some point so we can save our planet. So we need to do this, so we need to figure out how to do this, so we need to figure out how to keep this affordable and make sure that we're not, that people still want to do this in our community. So I'm definitely in support of that. And Commissioner, I don't even know whose turn it is to make a motion, so Commissioner Gonzalez, will you make the motion on this?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the application for a 1041 permit for the USS Welch Solar Facility 1041 permit file number 25 zone 3793, subject to the conditions of approval recommended by staff and the amended condition of approval, number 14.
Thank you, Commissioner. There's a motion on the table. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 3-0. That's the last of the business to come before this board. At 9:14, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.